A very warm welcome to all of you for a quick webinar, for a quick yeah yeah yeah. So without further delay, let's get started. I welcome all of you on behalf of the Teacher Foundation for a quick chat and a webinar on a subject that seems to be very pertinent for today's times. Um, which is beyond binary and which is about creating safe and equitable learning spaces for students with different gender and sexual identities. Um, Before we move forward, I would actually invite all of you to go to menti.com. You can use the code. And I have two questions, two very simple questions for you all to answer. I request all of you to just go to menti.com. If you're on your smartphones, or if you're on laptop, just pick up your smartphone and go to menti.com, type in the code. My colleague Rishma will be sharing the link in the chat box. So go to menti.com and answer two very simple questions. The first question is about how comfortable do you feel with students expressing different gender and sexual identities in your classrooms and schools. There are four options. You can choose one option which feels the most suitable, most true, correct for yourself. Yeah. And of course, it is all private and confidential. Your identities are not revealed. So I invite all of you to be absolutely open and honest while answering these questions. Yeah. Okay, I already have some responses coming in. We have 17 people who have already answered the first question. I would request the rest of you all to also quickly go to menti.com, type in the code given in the chat box, and answer the simple question. Yes, we have one more person, 18, 19. Good. How comfortable do you or might you feel with students expressing varied gender identities and sexuality in your class or school? Yeah. So I can maybe wait for a few more seconds before I'll wait for 25 people to answer. Okay. Yeah. All right. So as we can see, that majority of us in this group feel comfortable. Yeah. There are also a lot of us, almost a majority, who feel somewhat comfortable. Yeah. And there are also a couple of us who feel very comfortable. Great. Yeah. I would also like you all to go to the same Menti, type in the same code. And this time I'm going to present the next question. Yeah. And I want you all to answer the second question. which is how open or ready do you, as an adult, as a teacher, educator, feel how open do you find yourself to learning about gender and sexuality? Yeah, and again, there are 4 options. First one is not open. I don't think it is required. Somewhat open, but I still feel unsure. I'm open and curious, though not sure how it might help me. I'm ready to learn as I'm sure it is needed. Sorry about the typo there, as it is needed.
नहीं कैमरा बंद है मेरा स्टार्ट वीडियो जेडे ना ते मैं बंद कर
Yeah. Can we all stay on mute? Yeah, I request Ashutosh to probably keep everyone on mute and request everyone else. Yeah. Great. So we have about 21 people answering. Majority say that they feel ready to learn about gender and sexuality because they feel it is needed. A few of us also feel that they are open and curious, but they are not sure how it might help them as teachers and educators. There's also one person who feels that they aren't open at all and feel that it is not required. Yeah. However, as we see that the number of people who feel ready to learn is going on increasing. We also have someone joining in the second category who feels somewhat open, but is still kind of unsure. Yeah. However, a good majority over here is feeling open and wanting to learn. And that brings us to today's presentation. Just give me a second. Yeah. And that brings us to today's presentation. So as all of us expressed that some of us are somewhat comfortable, some of us are not comfortable at all, some of us are comfortable and ready to learn. But let's just see what actually the scenario is and then decide how open or comfortable we might want to become with the subject of gender and sexuality. So a quarter of our population in India today is below 14 years of age. 10 to 24-year-olds constitute 27% of our population. So this is the youth, and this is the period where issues related to gender and sexual identity really emerge and peak. And this is a good number of good number of these people are in schools and education institutions while they are dealing with these conflicts. Now, an estimated 10% of India's population, or around 135 million people, identify themselves on the spectrum of LGBTQIA+. Yeah, and these are a lot of letters there, but L standing for lesbian, G for gay, B for bisexual, T for transsexual, Q for queer, I for intersex and intersexual, and A for asexual and plus. So there's a spectrum. Studies have indicated that most of the young people who identify as gender and sexual minority experience some form of guilt or shame, low academic performance, less concentration, absenteeism, limited social interactions, physical injuries, and emotional disorders while they are in schools. A couple of studies that were conducted in few states also indicated that majority of teachers and also adults, other adults in schools, consider LGBTQIA+ and other concepts related to gender and sexuality as Western concepts, somewhat an abnormality, and also against their value system. As a result, majority of young people continue to face bullying, harassment, discrimination, and social exclusion in Indian schools, as well as other areas on the grounds of gender and sexuality. Now, these experiences impact not only their academic outcomes, but they also leave a lasting effect on their confidence, relationships, and sense of self. They also make young people very susceptible to anxiety, depression, addiction, and suicide. Hence, in today's So in today's chat, there is an invitation for us to reflect and be curious about gender and sexuality. So today's chat, or the webinar, is not focused only on understanding LGBTQIA plus or issues related to LGBTQIA plus, but it is also an invitation for teachers and educators to find out how we tend to view, experience, approach, and respond to gender and sexuality on a routine basis, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. Hence, allow yourself to express, especially when you feel discomfort, by trying to remain curious and asking more questions. Before we begin, I would also like to let everyone over here know that today's chat may delve into difficult memories and difficult experiences of children with varied gender and sexual identities in schools. Therefore, at any point, if any of you feel a lot of discomfort, or you feel that you're not ready to really have this conversation, do take care of yourself. If you feel like dropping off, feel free to do that as well. But yes, the invitation is always to remain curious and ask questions or seek support. Yeah? We have a wonderful speaker today. Our speaker today is Deepak Dhanjaya. He is a queer Indian man, and he's a part of the margins of the society. He works for the margins and with the margins, negotiating boundaries of privileges and oppression due to patriarchy, sexuality, class, caste, and religion. Deepak has his own private practice. He also teaches and supervises professionals who are getting trained for various roles in the field of mental health, and especially in gender and sexuality. All his work is influenced by his experience in activism, which is connected with mental health and social structures. By qualification, he's an engineer. He also holds a master's degree in sexuality. So I welcome Deepak. I will stop sharing my screen so that all of you can see him. I request my colleague Kritika to spotlight Deepak.
It's a bit of a pleasure for being spotlight. Thank you.
Yes.
It's a wonderful welcome and setting the context.
Yeah. Thank you, Deepak, first of all, to agreeing to do this, having this chat with us today. And before we begin, I would like you to just kind of, in a nutshell, explain what is gender and what is sexuality. The same way that you taught us, all of us also at TTF, how do you differentiate between gender, sex, and sexuality? So if you can quickly help people understand this.
Sure, Monila. I think I want to build on what you were saying just before introducing me, the discomfort it may cause, because we have developed as a society a frame of reference of what gender, sex, and sexuality is. And the discomfort is the challenge. It challenges our frame of reference, right? Just to give a basic idea of what is the difference between sex, gender, and sexuality is. Sex is the body that I born with, my genitals, yeah, and that defines my sex. How do we know it's a boy or a girl? Because of my genitals, yeah. That is sex. That's the body that I am born with. And as I grow up, how do I want to show myself? How do I feel comfortable expressing myself? Is gender. But gender is mostly influenced by what society says. Right from the time I'm born, if I am born as a male, I'm put in a blue room, blue balloons, and the blue bibs and onesies. And if I'm born with a female body, yeah, there's a pink room and the flowers and all of it, right? So society already starts telling me how I should express myself and be myself, right? So sex is the body, gender is how I express myself, and sexuality is how my body feels with another body. Yeah, whether I feel excited, whether I feel aversive, whether I feel anxious, do I feel pleasure when I look at the other body? So they're not related. but society is constructed by correlation. Yeah, that if you're born with a male bodied, you have to behave like a man, then you have to like a woman sexually and romantically, but they're not interrelated. Yeah, I can be born with a male bodied. I like to express myself in different ways, maybe wear a nose pin or wear a sari. In different context and culture, I would be seen differently. Wearing a gown here may look like I'm dressing up like a girl, but wearing a gown in some other place may feel like it's part of the cultural way of expressing yourself. And most importantly, then I must like a girl because I have a male body, right? And that sexuality that society enforces on us. Somehow all of them are like match the following tied together in the society. But what I want to say is they're different. I can be born with a male bodied, express myself differently, which is not how society thinks as a man. And then I can like anybody that I like, where I feel excited, where I feel pleasure, where I feel aroused. Yeah, in a nutshell. Is there anything else you want me to like expand on? I'm happy to. I'm just going to pause and see.
No, Deepak, I think you've explained it quite well. But of course, we will give time for people to ask questions at any point. They can always type it out in the chat box.
I
But
think, sorry, I want to add one part to that is this tying up the match the following. It is made look like a normal, and anything which is deviant. If I wear a sari and sit in front of you right now, it feels abnormal. Now, why? Because normal and abnormal is a statistical term. But over the years, society has made it look like normal is equal to natural and abnormal is equal to unnatural. I just want to help people, all of you, teachers, educators, to think about how this has been equated as we progress in our chat. I just wanted to add that bit, and then we can continue.
Great. And yeah, and that is that is such an enlightening thought, that normal and abnormal is only statistics, and normal need not be equated with natural. And similarly, abnormal not with unnatural. An interesting phrase that you use is our frames of reference, yeah, and our frames of reference decide what is normal for us and what is not normal for us. And society largely functions on these frames of reference. So what really happens when we experience, when we encounter, when we come across people who are not fitting into these frames of reference? And my question here essentially leads to, what really happens with young people who might not fit into these frames of reference. What might their experiences, challenges, struggles be, especially while growing up and in the traditional mainstream school education system?
Yeah, and I don't want to just say it's only mainstream school. Look at our environment, right? It's built on heterosexual, cisgender, like man and woman kind of a society. So I grew up as gay boy in school, uh, having to hide myself every time there was any reference to it. Like I liked creative stuff. I never played sports. I was not this alpha male. I didn't talk about my crushes. But I knew what I liked in some way, right? Growing up in schools, because our narrative is also so much about just man and a woman and what man should do and what a woman should do, there is no other reference points for queer people to know that it's okay. I'll tell you simple examples. In textbooks, when we're teaching about family, I know recently there is a change in the textbook, but until now, textbooks show a father, mother, son, or daughter. It's a family, right? But what about queer people who grow up liking the same gender and same sex? Where is the reference point for them to say, okay, it's fine, like this is okay for me to like somebody? There's a constant feeling of intentional of course, there's intentional abuse of, okay, I was bullied for being not so macho and masculine, but there's unintentional, unspoken psychological um, undertone that you're not okay. Yeah, because everything is around being what a man and woman and man liking a woman, girl, right? Even the jokes are about, okay, you like, or you like this girl, or you like this boy. This kind of things constantly gives a reference to the to growing up children that they're not okay in some way. And there's no reference to look at, yeah, and say this is normal, because we grow up on stories like Cinderella and Snow White, and where there's girl and waiting for the boy and Prince Charming. So there's so much of that in the reference and stories that we hear, even in grandparents telling us stories. There's no reference of same gendered different people. Either the references are towards humiliating or shame, like they're made fun of, or do you act like a girl, or you this is like references from movies, and gay people wear pink. I mean, coincidentally, I'm wearing pink today, but floral, and
I
this,
picked all the colors
yeah,
because I
I
thought,
can see that.
why not be?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is coincident, but there's so much reference, unspoken reference to what one should be, and children growing up have no reference, and there's no one to go to in some sense, right? Imagine you're in a cage and you don't know how to get out of the cage, and that's what I think, how it impacts growing up children. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for helping us understand that. And I think a lot of what you spoke is related to the stories that we hear, or the
Yeah.
content that we are exposed to, or the curriculum that has typically been followed. But I
Yeah.
would also like you to kind of draw attention towards what, in terms of policies, spaces, um, behaviors, interactions, actually leads to uh, intentional or unintentional marginalization of people. And when I'm using the term marginalization, I would like to define, to the best of my capacity, is basically unintentionally or intentionally pushing people to the periphery. So you're not counting them in, you're not seeing them. I hope I'm right there, Deepak, but you can help us there.
Yeah.
But yes, how does marginalization really begin in schools, and what really happens in terms of policy, spaces, interactions at school?
Yeah, I mean, marginalization, you put it right. I mean, it's in the putting people in the margins, not in the center. Society is built around quite heteronormative world, like what a man and what a woman should do. Let me talk a little bit about, okay, what policies? Let's start from uniform, right? If I'm born with a male-bodied, and I don't feel like that's the best way for me to express myself, I don't have a choice to change that, right? I mean, I have to wear a uniform, which is shorts and, I mean, shirts, and women and girls have to wear skirts and something about that. So there is a little bit no agency in some way of being who I am. I know some new age schools don't have uniforms, which is good. But it adds another layer of socioeconomic class of, do I have good clothes to wear? Do I have, like, it adds complexity while it's liberating, but also it adds complexity to keeping the class difference highlighted. So simple things like that, and toilets. And I mean, I was bullied in toilets. I was very scared to go to men's toilets. And I couldn't go to women's toilets because it felt unsafe. And I was not sure what I feel about myself. How do I articulate who am I? Yeah. So if I don't know who am I and I'm feeling unsafe in different places, then the environment is quite not welcoming. puts me, and that is a collateral, and it puts me back in the margin. So I remember days where I wouldn't use the men's boys' toilet for the whole day. And I would wait coming home and using it. Not that my parents knew anything about it, but that was on my way of keeping myself safe. Um, Teachers and educators in an environment, questioning some expression. If a boy wants to dance in certain way, if a girl wants to take up a sport in certain way, or some activity unconsciously, not with an intention, unconsciously saying, okay, you do this, you do that. Yeah, like I wanted to go for a dance. I wanted to be a dance in one of the dance programs. And this dance teacher told, no, you don't look like a boy that can be the hero of the dance. So you can't be in the dance. They picked up a macho boy who didn't want to dance and made him dance like a hero in the dance. You see, there's so much unintentional ways of marginalizing in some sense, because we have a defined idea of who should be what. I keep coming back to man and a woman because our society is revolved around that. Then while teaching about genders, about biology, for example, the curriculum, it talks about the anatomy of man and woman. There's more to anatomy, like I said. Sex is the body that I am born with. We talk about and teach about that. But we don't have enough spaces in schools where we can learn about different genders and different sexualities and what it impacts, and the safety. What is safety? We talk about safety for men and women, but what about safety for, sex education for queer people? Like, that's not seen and spoken about. So you see, there's so much absence in the ecosystem, not just from policies. I'm sure policies are inclusive in that sense. Nobody is denied access to school because of their gender, but in first place, we have made sure that they don't talk about their gender. So there is no way. It's like a chicken and egg problem, right? In first level itself, there's no space for child to say, I am this and I'm that. But then we have a policy which will not exclude people if they do, but we don't have space for talking. Is that making sense?
Yes, yes, Deepak, absolutely. And I think you bring us to a very relevant gap in today's world, wherein, thanks to activism, a lot of policies are getting revised. They are getting, reviewed, and thankfully, amendments are getting made. But there is a huge gap when it comes to implementation, when it actually comes to living the policy.
Yeah.
And I think that is where the true challenge really lies. So so coming from that, I would actually want to ask you, what do you suggest, or in your experience, Deepak, what can help an individual, and especially individuals of our generation or generations before us, who did not have so much exposure to the ideas of gender and sexuality, or who didn't have language for it, articulation for it. What do you think can really help to make that transition, or at least to begin that journey from binary, which means just two, either or, to beyond binary, which means or many more? Yeah. So, I mean, what really helped you, and what do you think can help our teachers, educators, people of our generation? Yeah.
I think it's not an easy question, okay? And we find it difficult to implement the policies, not because policies are not good, right? We find it difficult because we have internalized psychologically this idea of heteronormative world inside us, right? I mean, where do you look at everything, right? Look at cultural aspects, look at rituals, you look at everything around it. Marriage, for example. If we look at a hero, heroine, like, movies, and this, everything is about these two binary identities, right? Now, what do we do about it? Okay, there is an aspect of policies will get implemented. We can bring in rules and adherence to it, or inspection and all of it, or we can make a gender neutral toilets, and we can make gender neutral language and all of it. But most importantly, it is lies in the social psychological frame of our community, like especially educators community that I'm addressing right now. What is our internalized idea of this? How comfortable and how uncomfortable I feel about it? Challenging my frame of references. Yeah. I think that's the first step. And when child is exploring, when you see them doing something which is in your mind not normal, to ask, what is a child expressing? And we have a dialogue about that, creating a space of dialogue in the ecosystem about their experiences without having to give answers or reduce it to a label. Yeah, I think that's a good start. Exploring our own internalized idea of society, what's normal, what's not normal. It can cause discomfort, and we have to develop the stomach to, you know, digest the discomfort that we encounter while exploring that. It's like this is like having a prebiotic or a probiotic to strengthen my gut. So we have to develop that stomach to digest our discomfort, and creating spaces, safe spaces for having a monthly um, open space or safe space for children to come and talk about what they feel about themselves. Movie screenings, for example, like, educating themselves. There are a lot of lovely material on reading or watching to understand the complexities of gender and sexuality. We think gender and sexuality is just the binary. Either you're a man or a woman, or transgender, or either you're straight, so we call it heterosexual, or gay. But our gender and sexuality is fluid. We have a different response to different kind of bodies. Yeah, it's fluid. So to learn about this, educate themselves, be open for digesting the discomfort, and creating safe spaces for in schools, in environment, talking about it. And little things, right? Like, I mean, small little things. Like I wanted to show something, like small gestures, which may feel like welcome space. Like, I have this rainbow coaster. Yeah. Even having a rainbow flag. Uh, then children are seeing something. New age children are making some associations about it, having a conversation about why rainbow. And that gives a psychological permission for children to say, okay, this person, this one teacher I can go and talk to. And you don't have to know everything. It's perfectly fine. You don't know about it. But what is really important is the openness to engage, to understand the meaning of what the child is saying. Right? Small gestures like that. So rainbow flag.
I request everyone to be on mute. I think someone's mic is on.
Yeah, I muted. Yeah. So creating spaces, conversations, creating some space for yourself to talk about the shame and discomfort or biases you have. We can't understand or expand our frame of reference without going through the discomfort and without ourselves, understanding it. So to have even this community coming together and having conversations about it, educating themselves, be feeling free to talk about their biases openly, and then getting through it so that you can create a space like that. Even if it's impacting one child, imagine what you would do to that child, right? I mean, that's the key elements I think is helpful for as educators.
Thank you so much. Can you like name or like can you suggest like one or two places we can begin from? For example, something I started with was watching cinema that shows stories of people having a same-sex relationship. That was my beginning point. I mean, that's where I started from. So similarly, can you just quick, 2 or 3 things that that would help people to start with?
Yeah, I think I love the idea of media and good media. There is this very old movie. It's about real story of a first gender operation, like they would call it sex correction operation, Danish Girl. Yeah, it's a nice movie to watch. Then there is some fun comedy related series called Schitt's Creek, which is a nice one to watch. It elaborates in a non-offensive way the complexity of gender and sexuality and finding different ways to engage with it. Then there is, of course, classic sex education, but it has a lot of overtly used language, but it's not so bad. It is very helpful. Forget the language. Um, I don't know if if you know this. Ajib Dastans, the four stories in that Puchki is one story of these two girls navigating very complex scenario. One is married, one is not married. They have kind of a love encounter in a workplace, and it has a dimension of caste dynamics in that. That's a nice movie to watch. Reading, there's so many books and available for reading. Yeah, I can send some reading material. There's enough on the internet to read. Yeah, I think these are some of the ways. And having conversations,
Yeah.
not to be scared of having these questions on a dinner table conversations.
Yeah.
I think that's also small ways to start having a tea party with, okay, gender conversations today, kind of a thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And conversations also bring us to the idea of building language, building our vocabulary, so that we find that ace to talk about the subject,
And it helps us expand our frame of reference. The fear, most of the time, when we encounter something out of our belief system, the fear is that, oh, if I engage with it, I will have to discard my frame of reference. And
Yeah.
that's not true. We don't have to discard our frame of reference. We have to expand our frame of reference.
Yeah.
So you're not discarding something of you. I mean, that's how society evolves, right? Divorce was a non-touchable topic. Being gay was a criminal offense. Sati was there many, many decades ago. Now we have evolved because as human beings, we want to be inclusive. We want to be. We have the capacity to see somebody in pain and want to do something about it. That's how evolution has helped in making policies more expansive. So I think for us to access that humanness inside us, only when we do that is when we can expand our frame of reference and influence the society. Only policies will not change. We have to constantly expand our frame of reference so that the policies can be implemented without a gap.
Yeah. I think that's a wonderful thought. That's a wonderful idea that you bring us, that you don't have to, give away, or you don't have to ditch, or throw away your beliefs, your values, but you kind of expand. Yeah. You try to include more in your value system or in your frame of reference. So which is such a wonderful way, because you feel more comfortable expanding rather than
discarding.
Yes. And the same is true about rights also, right? Because a few more people are getting their rights doesn't mean that my rights are being taken away.
No, not at all. I think it's
really
very
it just means that more and more of us and all of us enjoy equal rights. Yes.
Very, very good connection you make, Monila.
Yeah. But thanks, Deepak. So any final words or thoughts, that you would like to share with our teacher, our educator community here? Anything you would like to tell them, maybe one or two key points to begin with, or just anything you want to leave them with?
I have huge regard for my teachers, not my school teachers. I'm not making a fun or a very, very unthoughtful comment. Yeah. Some of my teachers in my college really saw me. They didn't have the language to say, I accept you, but they did. But some of my teachers in school, I was longing for their attention, to just see me for who I am, and I didn't. Uh, and and I wish my teachers saw me, and I think teaching and teachers are such a foundational, you know, I'm not even overrating it. I can actually, my eyes fill up when I look at those teachers in my school. I wish they liked me because I long for that connection. It's almost like longing for my mother's or father's love. And only if they could, um, see me, right? I mean, that's the place I hold for teachers, and many children hold that, right? Because they spend almost one third of the day, or maybe more than that, with teachers' presence. And every teacher, I have two nieces, they come back and say how lovely they felt when the teacher acknowledged them and praised them, and how terrible they felt when the teacher scolded them. But more importantly, if you can see them for who they are, is such a precious gift beyond everything, because whether you like it or not, you represent a big part in their internal world. I think that's what my invitation is, for all the educators to hold that you, whether you want to, it's not a choice. You are a part of their internal world, children's internal world. So I would invite you to see them, in a way, not that you're not seeing, but see them for who they are and explore with them, even engage with them. Sometimes if you don't know something, it's okay. Because my college teachers, I passed out 10, 20 years back, and I still hold them because they saw me of who I am, in some way very core. That has left a very, very strong imprint in me.
Thank you. Thank you, Deepak, for leaving us on that very thoughtful note. And yes, almost, I also feel goosebumps when you say that, yeah, I wish that teachers just saw me for who I am. Yeah. And Deepak is still going to be around, but, that just brings me to the whole idea of the importance of teachers seeing children for who they are, the importance of teachers having those conversations with young people, the importance of schools creating those spaces, creating those policies, creating those structures in which all of this can be held safely, and all of this can happen on a regular, consistent basis so that children get opportunity to express who they really are. Yeah. And that brings me to just last couple of slides from my side. Thank you, Deepak. Do stay around because we will have a Q&A session 2, last 5 minutes. But I'll just quickly finish telling everyone what we have at TTF. So
Yes,
thank you,
I'm here.
Deepak.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah. So that brings us to schools, yeah, what schools can do, what teachers can do. So as Deepak just very beautifully said, that teachers have this immense power, and with that there is that immense responsibility also of doing justice to a child's internal world. Yeah. And not just teachers, but education has this inherent ability to bring about social change by impacting cognitions, attitudes, and behaviors at an individual as well as at a collective level. And therefore it is extremely important that education ensures that children are growing, they are learning without stereotypes and prejudices in order to create a more equitable society. So therefore schools can consider, on top, of course, is teachers, and not just for TTF, but I think for society also, building teachers' capacity, helping teachers, as Deepak said, expand their frame of reference so that they can learn a new language, they can quote new examples, they can talk about new experiences. If not talk, they can listen and accept alternative stories and narratives. Second, having an inclusion policy, which includes safeguarding people of all genders and identities equally. Using a gender neutral curriculum while schools are selecting what curriculum they want to embrace, seeing to it that you pick something that is gender neutral, that doesn't define gender roles in the conventional manner. Having forums for conversations, something that we at TTF promote as quality circle time. But yes, schools can do it in many different ways to create those safe spaces where children and teachers, young people and teachers can come together and have conversations, real, authentic conversations without fear of judgment. Educating and partnering with parents. This is a very important piece in our puzzle, the parents. Yeah, and we need to partner with them. We need to sometimes educate them, make them aware. And at any point, we need to ensure that we are safeguarding the child. We owe it to the child. So therefore, we have to ensure how we make parents our allies. Creating inclusive physical spaces, as Deepak pointed out. Of course, it's a challenge to change the infrastructure, but at the same time, you can always create spaces that are more vibrant, that are more inclusive, that are welcoming to people of different identities. And lastly, having more and more student-led committees. So Beyond the Binary is something that is the latest offering of the Teacher Foundation. It is a one-day workshop that is specially designed for school teachers, heads, and leaders who wish to develop their own as well as their school's capacity in the area of gender and sexuality. Reason why you should choose TTF, or you should journey with TTF, is because just like all of you, TTF is also in the journey of transitioning from binary to beyond binary. So we can totally empathize with you all. We can be your co-passengers. We can be your co-witnesses as you take that journey in a safe and a non-judgmental way. So this one-day workshop has been created and curated by educators and practitioners just like you. And there have been experts like Deepak who have guided us in this journey and helped us create this beautiful one-day workshop. The outcomes of this workshop are you will be able to reflect and examine your own thoughts and feelings about gender and sexuality, also become aware of your own biases, stereotypes, and discomforts. You will be able to develop a language, vocabulary for gender and sexuality, which will enable you to have conversations with young people, students, and as well as your colleagues, parents, and other stakeholders in the school. You will also be able to identify bullying and discrimination happening on the basis of gender and sexuality and take initiative to promote, create safe spaces and support systems that offer voice and that actively discourage gender and sexuality-based violence. With that, I come to the end of my presentation. For more details, you can always email us. You can also check out our website, and you can follow us on all of these social media handles. Yeah. We have adequate time for people to ask questions. So feel free to type out your questions. I have my colleagues who are looking out there for questions. You can also, if you feel like, you can also raise your hand, unmute yourself, and ask a question to Deepak. I'm throwing it open to my colleagues also. Some of my colleagues who are also new, they can also feel free to ask questions. Yeah, we have a question here. How can educators handle resistance from parents or the community when addressing these topics related to gender and sexuality? Yes, Deepak, actually we do kind of empathize with schools because they are sometimes, treading a very precarious path, whether to safeguard the child or to safeguard parents. So what do you think, can really help schools and educate?
I think to understand the resistance a little more, what is the resistance for? Yeah. Is it the idea? I mean, it's very natural, right? When I came out, my parents were in shock not because they don't love me, because They're going to see how the society will treat me, how I'm now excluded from the society in some way, right? I'll not get married and I'll not, whatever, right? And it's quite a threatening idea. The more we educate ourselves about it, the more we'll have the language to engage with the kind of resistance. Sometimes it's the shame, sometimes it's the guilt, sometimes they say, oh, what did we do so that my child is becoming like this? And I think you used very important art, which is protection, right? And protecting the child is utmost thing. Yeah. Okay. So if you find that you can't talk to parents and you help the child to understand themselves, maybe and not share with the parents as yet. Yeah. And that's also something very important.
As yet,
As yet.
that timing is also very important.
Yeah. Because children may go through it. Yeah. Protection of the child is very important. Yeah. And I think I work with many mental health professionals. When they work with young youth, they do help the child to make sense of their experience. They're still figuring out, right, what they are and who they are, and the language to experience it. Yeah. So I think it's important to see what is helpful for the child right now without closing down their exploration, and what will keep them safe, and also developing capacity as school and teachers to take a stance. And there are consequences to it, but we will say, okay, this is our stance, and we are an inclusive school. So be it, and it takes that much energy. Like we would say, we don't do discrimination based on color of people.
Yeah.
There used to be a time we would, but now we don't. We take a stance of it, right? And that's how we can normalize all of these things.
Great. Thank you, Deepak. We have a few more questions here. My
Yeah.
next question is from Ashutosh. He has posted a question from our participants. How soon do you think children understand their sexuality and seek to express it? So this is a question coming from our colleague Sandhya. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're all educators, the developmental milestones, and adolescence is when we express our desire and all that. But Freud said we have our own sexuality developed from when we are born. Yeah, we know what body part feel pleasure, what we don't feel pleasure. Our sexuality is part of who I am. It's not the act of sex alone, right? So I think we have a sense of what draws me, what don't draw me, what type of bodies draw me, what type of bodies don't draw me, not necessarily in the idea of the sex we think it is. Yeah. And we quite early know as grown-ups. I mean, if you look at your own experiences of growing up, you know when you liked a girl or a boy or a different body, it's
Or
not like
who you liked playing with. What kind of games you liked engaging in.
That's a little slippery slope, Monila, because the games we play is very influenced by the society. You play I used to play a husband and wife game, but that's very influenced by what I saw. But that was not what I was feeling inside, right? But I quite early on knew I don't like the girls like the way I like boys, but I didn't have a language to say it.
Yeah.
So and hormones change, and and during adolescence you will see the peak of it, but it's just. And remember, sexuality is not binary, either straight or gay. We have fluidity of sexuality, right? So I may like something of boy, something of girl, and we have boxed it as boy or a girl and man and a woman because the society needs it, because society needs marriage, society needs children. That's why we have created this idea. If we let go of that, we all know from our own experiences, we've been attracted to some type of bodies differently. So it's quite early on.
So it's early on, and I think it's a myth, if people believe that young children don't engage with gender and sexuality, or teachers who are engaging with young children in primary grades and all might not encounter such difficulties or such conflict.
And I also want to add something. It's not definitive. It's not definitive, right? It's fluid. So I had a young boy. I don't work with children so much, but I had a young boy, 7, who said, I think I'm gay, uncle. Okay, fine. Yeah, after a few months, few years, he came in 2, 3 years, he came and said, I think I like both girls and boys. You see, it's not definitive. Our own sexuality is fluid. We have to let it flow, but we get constrained by the society structure to be boxed. I think that's the thing. It's not definitive. So the question that are they sure is never sure. Are we sure about our sexuality? We are never sure. We're told what society tells us to be, and that's how we've developed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We have a couple of more questions, but unfortunately, we are running out of time. Maybe we'll take one more minute and Deepak will kind of try to be on so how can parents whose children have come out to them help change societal and familial attitudes? And do you
I
think
think I think it's a very important thing to engage in that conversation, not to hide, and support. Like I said, the child is battling the entire society alone. If you can be the support for them, it's nothing like it. Like even to say, okay, we stand by you through your exploration. And that's the biggest support. The child can fight the world. And if educators can stand by the child and say, we will, I don't know exactly what you're going through or you're sure or not, but I am with you through your exploration. I think that's the way. And one child experiences it one, and then you will say you survived it by supporting them, and then you will be open for another child. That's how slow changes impact the narration. Today in my family, okay, I don't hide myself, but there used to be a time when I would hide in my extended family. I don't. So that's how small conversations and help. Yeah.
Yeah. And the last one is how to educate young generation about not to follow the gender trend without understanding their bodies. So,
Like I said, the gender is not related to the bodies. Yeah. This trend we call is a trend now because we see it as a defense to the exploration. If a boy wants to wear a skirt, we think it's a trend, but it has nothing to do with his genitals, right? It's the expression, and the expression is fluid. If you go back to the area of kings and queens, there would be a long frock worn by a prince.
yeah.
But today, if that person wears like that, something wrong with it, right? Like, so to see the that it is not a trend, it's an expression. So be it, even if it is a trend. Okay, are they feeling comfortable expressing themselves? What happens to me if I see them in that way? That's the key part to explore more than making sure that they understand better. They don't. I don't. But and remember, it's a fluid idea. I like pink. I like wearing something. You like something, and we somewhere draw the line of this is all I can do. Not because who says this is all I can be like? Society tells that I can't grow a long hair, plait it, have a kajal. I mean, so there is this societal ideas. We're very not sure. These are boundaries drawn by the society, which are made to look bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or not good. Yeah, so I would say it's a long answer, but I'm just going to stop here. And yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Deepak. And thanks to everyone who joined here. We have so many of you asking wonderful questions and engaging, with this beautiful conversation. So many, many thanks to Deepak, who has also guided us in many ways. To just tell you all that the Teacher Foundation's entire team underwent training for becoming trauma sensitive. We are still in the process and engaging with it. Our leadership team also underwent special training for understanding gender and sexuality. Again, we are in a journey, and we have guiding lights like Deepak. So yes. So with that, I would like to leave you all on the note of camaraderie, that all of us can do it together, and therefore it is an invitation from TTF to help us become your partners in understanding gender and sexuality better. So thank you so much, Deepak, for giving us your time. And sorry, we are late by 4 minutes.
That's okay. And lovely. Thank you for invite. And it's a pleasure to work with TTF, just with the openness of embracing and making an impact to children and teachers. We only think about children, but teachers are getting impacted in this, and lovely initiative. And I'm happy to journey, like you said. I mean, I'm not arrived anywhere, but I'd like to journey with TTF and building what you want to build and creating an inclusive space for children and teachers. Lovely to be part of this initiative and good luck, and lovely to have seen 100+ people join, and yeah, good luck to all of you in this exploration.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Deepak. That's all from us, people. My colleagues have posted a feedback form, and they have also posted a form asking you all about your preference related to a workshop on gender and sexuality. Don't forget to answer this form. We look forward to staying connected with all of you. Signing off for year 2024. This is also our last webinar this year. So wishing you all a wonderful holiday season. Yes, a very, very colorful holiday season. And we'll be welcoming you all in 2025 with our new offerings. So thank you and have a good evening. Thanks, Deepak. Bye-bye.